Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Magpies Collection ASMR. Today, I'd like to show you all my chainmail purse collection and give you a little bit of history about one of the most prominent makers of these chainmail bags, Whiting and Davis, of which I have 2 examples here today. I've always really been fascinated by these bags. You find them a lot in antique stores and flea markets, and I just think it's such an interesting mix of medieval and Renaissance, and then the flapper era Art Deco. This medieval aesthetic has really popped up throughout history a couple of times, and I think it's having a moment again, so I thought it was only right to give these bags a little bit of love to show how the medieval Y2K kind of got its roots. So first off, we'll start with a little bit of history here. So, Whiting and Davis is an offshoot company from a pretty well-known jewelry manufacturer from the 1870s, which was Wade and Davis. They first produced a chain link bag in around 1890s, and they looked very different from the bags that you may think of here. So originally, they would have been a small little 3-inch coin purse or so, squared off with a pretty large link, which would have been perfect for a lady to wear on her chatelaine or hanging from her belt. The medieval aesthetic was also having a moment in the 1890s, so these bags really took off, and the company was bought out and renamed Whiting and Davis in, I would say, the 1890s or so. The process originally was pretty laborious and required a lot of specialty handwork, as has been the case throughout the long history of chainmail. But Whiting and Davis was one of the premier manufacturers to patent as well for these bags, and patented several different machines to automate the chain link process in 1920, which made them one of the premier producers of these bags. They patented as well this U-shaped, very dramatic frame, which was very popular from the 20s bags. Very long, delicate, and sinuous shape. In 1928, they patented as well this fish scale mesh, which allowed them to have these beautiful big panels to enamel different designs. So this style became very popular, and you can actually see it on modern bags. There's more of a slouch bag shape, like a pouch. It's their boho bag with this material that has a long cap and an actual stopper on the top. And then from the 80s, you find more traditional bag shapes also made out of this material. But I'm more interested in these older designs, these long, luxurious flapper bags from Whiting and Davis. So we'll start out here with, I believe, is the oldest example that I currently have. This is a traditional chain link, and you can see it's quite fine. If you ever get a chance to see one of these in person, I highly recommend picking them up, as they're really luxurious to hold, very soft and very fluid. So this bag has that really lovely long U-tapered shape. Reminds me almost of a French hood from the Tudor era. It has that very long shape of the body and these really lovely, delicate tassels. They're in fantastic condition. You often see these missing, these beautiful tassels down at the end. They're quite delicate, and when you're out on the town, you might snag them or catch them. The bag has on its frame really lovely inscription work of curly Q's and diamonds. It's very reminiscent of that medieval aesthetic. The clasp is a blue glass bead, and it's not very firm, just opens like that. Inside, you can see the Whiting and Davis logo. So this is a marked bag. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. In this traditional chevron shape, and it does say that this is patented, so this is after their patents for presumably the frame. I believe this bag is, at least for the frame, silver. And we have here as well this beautiful cord of that same mesh material. And it has a lovely fern design and this beautiful little clasp as well, which is such a great feature. If you were going out on the town, you could strap it onto your wrist so you can dance the night away and not worry about your bag getting lost. Moving to a slightly more modern example. On the far left, this is not a Whiting and Davis bag, but you can see it is heavily inspired from a very similar shape. Has a slightly less dramatic U here, and does use that Whiting and Davis patented panel fabric here, metal fabric. I think this one, though not from a prominent maker, is really lovely. I love this very simple, clean gold look. These delicate little fringe as well, again in really lovely condition. While the frame is much simpler, there's no decorative work, we do have those two beautiful blue glass beads. And as it opens here, you can see it's pretty well wired across the top, but we do have one of the common flaws of these bags around those stress points of the hinges here. So the mesh is not in the best condition. I would not wear this bag as it might deteriorate further, but it's still a really beautiful, bright gold example. And I do think that gold color is just so lovely, even if it lacks some of the details of a Whiting and Davis piece. It has a much simpler chain as well, just some standard links. Really lovely piece, and I think this one, in a way, has the best movement to it. Really does flow like water. It would have been a beautiful thing to see on some flapper's arm. Because this one uses that mesh fish scale material, I would put this one at the early 30s. Alright, and then last but not least, this was actually my first chain mail bag. This is another Whiting and Davis piece, and you can see how they would take advantage of that flat paneling of the fish scale mesh to enamel these beautiful Art Deco patterns. This was an automated process as well, so you would have a punch card with holes for the panels that needed a certain color, so you can see those little dots of enamel work. This one is in a lovely white, a warm cream, and then a nice terracotta brown. The shape is very different from our earlier examples. You can see it's very squared off. Even the body of the purse as well is very square. We've done away with that tapered shape at the bottom, the tassels, in exchange for these triangular panels. It's very Art Deco, and I think quite a wearable bag for today. I do wear this one out as it's in the best condition. While this is a different shape than our previous Whiting and Davis, you can see that same level of care and detail. You have beautiful inscription work at the top and enamel in these individual panels to really bring out that design. We have a simple ball closure, and this one has our Whiting and Davis tag as a little hang tag, which also indicates this is probably a later example, late 30s, I would say. There was a collaboration with the designer Schiaparelli in the 1930s, but I haven't been able to read this close enough to see if this does have that Schiaparelli branding. And similarly, this has a more intricate handle as well, or long twisted chain, which I think gives it that little extra detail. So the Whiting and Davis pieces definitely do stand out. I'd be hard pressed to pick a favorite here. I think they're all unique, and I love that they kind of tell the story of the evolution of these bags and the medieval inspiration that they draw from. I think this original one is so special. You can really imagine what it would have looked like gleaming on the dance floor. So, thank you for joining me today to learn just a little bit about some of the earlier medieval aesthetic movements that we're still drawing from today. I think these bags are such a fun piece of fashion history, and they're still pretty readily available. You can find some really gorgeous, elaborate peacocks or movie stars, or even more luscious Art Deco geometric patterns. So I really do highly recommend looking up some more beautiful examples of these bags. There's also a really fine chain mesh version where they have these delicate hazy watercolor enamel work on them as well. So really beautiful, really fun piece of history, and I thank you all for joining me